Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am PANCZASU. Introducing Stellaris. If you see this video, it means that the review embargo is off and that the game is out, and it's possible that you have it already and you're wondering how to play it, or maybe you don't have it, you want to hear some more opinions about it and before you actually do get it. In which case you are in the right place, because this is what this video is about. I am going to not only tell you why I believe that Stellaris deserves attention for good or bad reasons, I'll give you my opinion about it, and I'll also give you some very basic tips about how to play it for the newcomers to the genre. So, first things first, Stellaris is a 4X strategy game in real time, although it is pausable at any point in time, and it does have some grand strategy elements mixed in, which makes it a little bit more similar to games like Crusader Kings 2 and the like, although it is not by any stretch of the imagination an actual grand strategy. It is much less complex than that. That's not necessarily a bad thing, of course. I mean, 4X games are one of my favorites. I do like the modern grand strategy in general. I'm just giving you an honest impression about how this game plays like. Now, I will give you a fair warning before I move on further, is that I have a tendency to focus on the negative things whenever I try to make comments about a game that I like. And I'll give you a spoiler warning right now. Yes, I do like Stellaris, alright? So, which means that yes, I will launch a pretty decent amount of criticism at it as a result, because I care about it, because I see plenty of potential. And I found a game that could be a lot better if not for a few bad things. So let's start things off with a technical issue that I do need to warn you about. It is the fact that if you want to play this game below 1080p, for whatever reason, I don't judge, maybe you don't have the capacity to actually launch this game at a high resolution or whatever. There are people like this. If you're one of those people, I mean, you will have some UI issues, and some game features will be blocked off entirely to you, unless you actually do things like, I don't know, downsampling and actually artificially increase your screen size, because this game will abstract some of its features. Now, keep in mind, this is not yet a release version. This game will be released in a few hours from now, so maybe things will be patched out, but I seriously doubt that they will in that regard. It seems like, unless you play on 1080p or higher, you will have some UI issues and you need to deal with this, or just not get the game at all. So, with that thing out of the way, let's focus on what you can do within it. So, first of all, you need to start the game, and as you start the game, you need to pick a race. There are a few predetermined races, but Stellaris, like many space games of the sort, does let you create your own race from pretty much scratch, and it gives you a ton of options on how you want to do it, on what you can do it. As you can see, I have created plenty of races so far, and creating a race doesn't take a long time, and it's for the most part, the things that you do are cosmetic, but some of them, actually quite a few of them, now that I think about it, do have some gameplay connotations as well. So, for example, you pick your racial traits, which influence the way that your primary race biologically operates. Maybe it's strong, maybe it's intelligent, maybe it's whatever. Now, I do have a problem with the system, a slight problem. It's the fact that you're limited to a maximum of 4 things you want to pick. It doesn't matter how many points you have, as long as you stay above 0, but you can only ever have at most 4 things, which I can see why probably they did it. Maybe it's because having more than 4 points at once would make races too weird to actually be believable, that they actually evolved on their own and are so weird in so many ways. I can sort of get it. I wish they added at least one more trait pick for you, so that you would have 5, which would give you way more versatility in creating not minor factions, in your own races. So I would appreciate that, yeah, but it's not necessarily a big deal. What is a big deal is the lack of negative traits that you can choose from in order to offset the positive traits. And the only negative traits you do have access to only give you an extra point each to operate with. So they're not very useful when trying to create a min-maxy or just interesting sort of race. For example, if you want to go for an extremely adaptive skill, then guess what? You have to literally fill your empire with 3 other traits, negative traits, in order to offset the balance and actually be able to use it. I wish there were some negative traits that actually give you more negativity if I can call it such way, and just more negative traits in general, because we're kind of missing variety in that aspect. There is an okay amount of positive traits, but really lacking negative traits. I don't know what's up with that, honestly. One other thing, it's not really a big complaint, but it's sort of strange how when it comes to choosing the flag, you only have a set amount of colors that you can choose from, and you can't just choose any color, any shade of color. And when we get to the galaxy map, you will see that the color you choose doesn't really matter when it comes to visibility, because you have plenty of visibility options, problems anyway. So they could have given us more colors, but this is really nitpicking. It's not a problem, alright? It's just me mentioning something to you. That's it. Now, aside from that, you have plenty of things to customize. You can choose the way that your Empire operates, and this also gives AI an idea on how to play as your Empire if an AI does spawn as your Empire, which you can make it so that it always spawns as empires that you create, or that it never spawns as them, or that it sometimes does. It's entirely up to you. You have control over it when you host a new game. Now, once you have selected an empire and you host your game, you can of course choose several settings that are all pretty standard for this kind of game. Now, however, there is one thing that, actually there are a few things I need to draw your attention to. Firstly, difficulty, which is tackled a little bit differently than in most other games of the genre. By which I mean, if you play on a difficulty that is higher than normal, then the AI is actually less likely to ally with you. It's more likely that it will instead gang up against you, which I'll give it that. It is an effective way of increasing difficulty. No problems and no doubts about it. There is, however, a side effect, an issue that it brings. It's the fact that you as a player, when you're playing on higher difficulties, because the game is not that easy in my opinion, it's more fun to play on higher difficulties, but if you do that, it limits the amount of things you can do severely, because you want to be in alliance with an AI, well, tough, you're gonna have... It's gonna be almost an impossibility, and this kind of limiting the things that you can do is... it feels like it's just less interesting to play games on higher difficulty this way, which I don't like. Like I said, it is an effective way to increase difficulty, it's just not very fun. Now, some things that are missing in the screen that I will point out, because I was always complaining that Endless Legend didn't have it, and I'll complain about them here as well, because, yeah, I think all 4X games like I should have it. What am I talking about? I'm talking about two things. First, pre-developed start, which means that as you start as an empire that already has maybe a few colonies already, a few techs already discovered, a decent navy, something that would speed up the game. This is not Crusader Kings 2, where you can jump into a game and instantly pick Byzantium and start already as a big living empire that's been here for a while and it already has interesting gameplay for you from the start. In here, every time you start as a little dude, and the very few first things you're gonna do in every game are gonna be exactly the same, which is a bit of a shame, especially since you can allow the AI to start as a pre-developed empire. You cannot let yourself do that though, which is a shame in my opinion. Some people will be certainly encouraged to get this game as a result. Another thing is that there are not pre-made teams that essentially are forced on players that can never be changed and that allow for share victory types. I know a lot of people do actually like to play games like this in co-op, so that would be a nice feature to have, but nevertheless it is absent. Alright, with all of that out of the way, let's actually delve into the game itself. So your quest is to dominate the galaxy, and you have two ways of doing this. So you either colonize 40%, you either colonize a certain amount of the galaxy, or you murder every player that is out there. Which is a problem actually, because compared to other focus games, that's not nearly a satisfying amount of victory conditions actually, when you think about it. It's basically militaristic or expansion victory, instead of giving you access to things like maybe scientific victory, maybe quest victory, maybe economic victory, maybe wonder victory, maybe whatever else victory you can think of. There are plenty of victory options and types you could go for, but this game elected not to do that. Instead, it's really pushing everybody towards being actually sort of militaristic as it is. As trying to win this game in any other way is extraordinarily difficult, long, and not really rewarding at all. So I'm not sure what's up with that. I don't mind because I am a warmonger at heart, but some more peaceful players may be annoyed by how difficult it is to win the game for them. So yeah, there's that. Now, I'm going to give you a short, brief tutorial about some of the most basic things about this game, so you may want to skip a minute or two forward if you are familiar with Stellaris or Fox games in general. You have several resources that you will need in order to actually create your empire, because yes, this is a game about empire creation. I haven't mentioned it already, but 4X stands for exploration, expansion, exploitation, and extermination. You need to do all of those 4 things to actually succeed in this game. And to do those things, you need to use resources. Firstly, you've got the energy credits. Energy credits, they are like power in real world. You use them to maintain your things, such as your ships, your buildings, your mining stations, your pretty much everything. You rarely use it for something in particular, like for example to clear terrain. For the most part, you just need to be on a positive with them so that bad things don't happen, because if you run out of energy, bad things happen. Next, you've got the minerals. They are like the opposite of energy. You almost never use them for maintenance, aside from ship maintenance, because you do need to replace the ammo and such. But you do need the minerals to actually make things, such as structures, such as ships, and so on and so forth. It's all pretty obvious once you think about it. Next, you've got the influence. Influence is required in order to do, well, guess what? Influence the way your empire and plans work. You can, for example, shift your population to like or dislike certain things, to behave in a certain way, to be more productive in one area or less productive in another area. This is the kind of thing that you will need influence to do. Additionally, influence is also used for a few other things. For example, you use it to hire heroes, and heroes, or rather leaders I suppose, they are used to enhance something. They can be governors and enhance the production on the planet. They can be admirals and enhance the effectiveness of your fleet. They can be scientists, or they can be generals. You get the idea. Also, influence can be used to expand your borders as an alternative to actually colonizing other worlds, because colonization is an important part of this game. It also allows you to expand your borders, and you need to expand your borders in order to, yeah, guess what, exploit more stuff, because in space there's a lot of junk. Some of this junk can be used to extract resources from. So aside from that, there is a limit to how many plans you can actually have, which is why you probably want to maybe have the outposts in order to expand the influence, because there are only so few plans you can actually manage on your own without them being a problem for your bureaucratic systems. You can sort of bypass this, however, by creating so-called sectors. Sectors give partial independence, not really independence, those are still your planets that you put into sectors. You can't control them directly though, they are their own states that are part of your empire, and they give you the amount of resources you ask them for, but at the maximum it's 75% of everything they make. You cannot ask them to give you more than that. So there is a caveat to having systems, but it is a good idea to have them, because they allow you to have much bigger empires than you otherwise would be able to get. So systems are necessary. Finally, we've got the 3 different research types rather. And this is something that's fairly unique to this game. In other games, science is usually put into one resource. In here, it's split into 3. You've got your physics, your sociology, and your engineering research, and they are all used into 4 different things and are not interactive with each other at all, with the exception of perhaps partially the physics research, which can be used to actually buff all research, not only itself. But other than that, those 3 things are independent from each other. Aside from unlocking new technologies, which we will need in order to progress the game and stay equivalent with your enemies, or even allies, you also use research for several other things. For example, you use it to fulfill some of your quests, you use it to reverse engineer enemy tech from debris that you find from their destroyed ships, or you can use research to genetically modify your own race to make it more powerful than it originally used to be. The options are yours. Now, you do need, of course, to explore the galaxy. Like I said, exploration is part of it, and by exploring the galaxy you can find several anomalies that will give you generally... I mean, anomalies can differ. Some of them can lead to quests that will last for many years. Some of them can last for a very short time, however, and the things that they give you, or threats that they uncover, vary from anomaly to anomaly, so they are very diverse in that sense. Once you meet other empires, you can also conduct diplomacy, well, what accent was that? Diplomacy, let's try that again. Or you can, for the most part, just declare war on the enemy empires and kill them if you are playing on insane difficulty, which is, yeah, that's probably what's gonna happen for the most part. Now, the thing about diplomacy is that it is relatively basic. I would like to encourage devs to look at Endless Legend in this case, and yes, I am biased towards Endless Legend, of course, but I think their diplomacy system is actually really good because, one, it uses influence in order to pay for diplomatic actions, which I felt like it was a really nice living system. It also felt kind of realistic because in real world you also need to be influential in order to actually have anything to say on a diplomatic scale, right? And additionally, what is really cool that Endless Legend had is the Cold War mechanic, which is missing from this game and pretty much any other Fox game ever. And Cold War is really cool. It makes the game more interesting and intense right from the get-go, but not too intense at the same time. It's nice to have something between peace and full outright war. Now, lastly, we need to talk a bit about ship design. So, in theory, you create your ships, you can have them auto-created, but you're supposed to create your ships in a way that will counter the enemy ships. Now, I will praise the developers for the weapon design, because it's fairly well varied. There are lots of different weapons that do different things. Some weapons excel at bypassing through shields, some weapons excel at cutting through armor, and so on, etc, etc. They are pretty cool in that regard. There's a lot of variety and I like it. However, there are a lot of bad things with the system, unfortunately. First of all, the idea that you are supposed to counter your enemy. Well, how are you supposed to do that when you actually get little to no information as to what your enemy is doing, or rather using on their ships? Well, you can't really. You can either make ships that are sort of decent at everything, or you can take a risk, take a coin flip, and design your ships in a specific way, and hope that you will randomly counter the enemy. Of course, once you do fight the enemy, then you will know what they use, and then you can retrofit your fleet, but chances are by this point you will have either won or lost the war anyway, because it's the first big battle that is important. So, yeah, there is a problem with that system in that way. Also, additionally, when it comes to ships themselves, while the weapons are nice and interesting and varied, nothing else about the ship stands out. There are special modules, they are uninteresting, and there are not too many of them. The ships themselves don't have any bonuses. In Endless Space 1, okay, I'll give it that. Endless Space 1 also didn't have very interesting ship bonuses, but it did try at least. It had things like, okay, this certain type of ship for this particular race will make this kind of module more space efficient, so you can fit more of it, or it will be cheaper, or maybe while making this particular ship, your population on a planet that is building the ship will actually be happier, and so on and so forth. Or maybe your science will drop because your scientists will need to help develop the ship. You know, those are interesting things they are lacking in this game, and that's a shame in my honest opinion, because of how interesting the weapons are. I would assume other things should also be interesting, and unfortunately they are not. Additionally, a very big problem with the ships is that they lack any sort of AI conditioning, AI behavior patterns. You cannot set the way your ships are supposed to act. And what does it lead to? It leads to a situation where all the ships in the game are just really intending to ram other ships. And no, ramming is not the mechanic in this game. Ships just phase through each other. So there's no ramming in this game, but all ships, regardless of that fact, just try to make a beeline towards each other and turn into this giant cluster of ships, which makes no sense because let's say you equip your ships with long-range laser weapons that are extremely precise and fire from extremely long range and are designed to destroy the enemy before they attack you, but at close range they're kind of rubbish, right? So why do ships equipped with this kind of weapon try to rush the enemy anyway? Because they do. All ships try to do it. I don't know. I don't get it. I think you should be able to set some AI patterns for you for the way that AI handles the ships. For example, these ships should stay in the back, these ships should go in the front, these ships should protect the larger ships. Also, AI should be smart by itself. For example, if it sees that it has the range advantage of the enemy, it should stay at the maximum range, and if it sees that the enemy ships approach towards it, it should actually try to run away while still firing at the enemy. Because that's what the space warfare would be like. If you have the range advantage, well, you try to maintain it rather than give it away, right? So that's a very big no-no. I'm really kind of disappointed by that fact, I'll be entirely honest. Now, also, one tiny little thing, in case you haven't noticed, but I think you have. Why do ships sink in space? I don't know, it's a little bit weird. It's a bit of a nitpick, I admit, but it is weird. Anyway, one last thing about the military. If you think you can get away without making it, you're wrong. AI is fairly ruthless when it comes to punishing players that ignore military. You will need some, but it's okay, because the ship design is still pretty fun with the weapons itself. It's just the battles are sometimes a bit annoying because you try to specialize in something and you can't. Besides, it also works in reverse. I talked about super long-range weapons that are pretty useless sometimes, but sometimes close-range weapons are also kind of useless because if you, for example, put close-range weapons on battleships are the last ships to join with a big mess in the middle of the battlefield. They tend to stand behind your lines, or at the very least they advance slower towards the enemy, which means that if you put close-range weapons on the battleships, then chances are they will not fire for the most of the battle. And if you, in case you say that, well, in that case you are supposed to put close-range weapons on small ships and long-range weapons on big ships, well, it still doesn't change the fact that those big ships will still charge at the enemy for no reason. So that is still a problem. Alrighty then. Also, one other thing about you needing a military, you also need it because at the start of the game you will fairly quickly get a quest that will spawn pirates against you, and those pirates will be just barely too strong for your standing navy to handle, so you need to make some navy in order to handle them. But speaking of pirates, something is strange about them, or the fact that there are actually no more pirates after this initial quest. What it gives? When they spawn, they basically usually have almost nothing to rob anyway, maybe a few stations, but not too many, and then they never appear again, which seems odd. I would assume pirates would continue, but it suddenly doesn't, which is kind of weird. Now, all of this aside, I'm pretty sure I tutorialized all the important bits. Again, it wasn't much of a tutorial this video, but it was on its very basic level, it did its job, I suppose. So let's go into some extra comments I have about this game, because there are some things I need to mention. One, there is no trading, unless we talk about the diplomatic trading, where you just talk to other empire to give it something in return for something else. But your empires by themselves, your people rather, that are within those empires, they don't trade really. So that doesn't feel very natural, and it's also not exactly what... It's strange because even Crusader Kings 2 had trading. I don't know why this game doesn't. So that's certainly one thing that could be changed. Other thing is that it's the Clausewitz engine, or however I'm supposed to pronounce it. I really wish I was able to actually, like, I don't know, have my ruler marry an inbred cousin, or assassinate somebody I just don't like for no reason whatsoever. Alright, I'm being only half serious over here. I realize this is not supposed to be a true gun strategy game, this is not Crusader Kings 2. And we shouldn't expect too much of it. I'm just saying, it would have been nice to be able to some of those things, since this is the engine that certainly allows it to do. But again, it's a shame, but you can't have everything I mean, and it's certainly not something that I'll hold against this game. It knows what it wants from itself, and it keeps to itself, so I can respect that. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. I've been dodging the subject for long enough, but it's time to address it. A really big problem with this game. There are no map modes. It's a very bad thing, because once you zoom out on the galaxy view, you, for example, want to know, hey, where are alliances? What alliances do I have to look at? Where are the Federation? Who can I interact with? Who thinks what about me? What other empires think about other empires? You know, all of those things in, for example, Crusader Kings 2, and I keep referring to Crusader Kings 2 because it's made by the same studio. In Crusader Kings 2, you can use different map modes that will instantly display this kind of information for you, really neatly, really nicely, really quickly, no problems, and this game doesn't let you do that. Why? Map modes are really essential for this game. Not having them does slow you down when you play this game a ton. It's a real big annoyance. And I really hope the devs do actually implement map modes through a patch as quickly as possible, because it's certainly something that this game should have. The fact that it doesn't is really a big problem. That's... honestly, it really is. Now, when it comes to a map, there's also another thing that requires your attention. Look at this. These empires are really hard to tell apart from each other, aren't they? because they all use the same colors. Why? There's something I don't get. It's the fact that when you give the player to choose a flag, you give that player two colors to choose from, one primary and one secondary. Why cannot you use your secondary color as the border color and have the primary color as the filling of your empire color? I mean, that would make sense, right? Also, why do some colors not appear on the galaxy map, like black? I mean, okay, I get it. Black on a black galaxy map, since, you know, it's space, it could be hard to see, but then again, if you use the secondary colors, then it would have some sort of outline, right? You would be able to see that. Or you could just not let people pick black, but that would be kind of bad. So, yeah, that's, again, another thing that makes the galaxy map hard to read, which I sadly do not appreciate. Something else, well, a bit of a nitpicky comment and not really a problem, but the fastest setting for this game is not really all that super fast. I wish it could go slightly faster than fastest, like something twice as fast maybe. It's not a really big deal, it's just me nitpicking. Another thing, it's also a minor detail, you can in this game do something that is called enlightening, so you can find a primitive race, that is for example in Bronze Age, and you can uplift them to Space Age. What I don't get is why is it a sudden change? It's like you go through a 50 years or so process of uplifting some species, and on the second to last day they still are in Bronze Age and still use wooden sticks, but on the last day suddenly they are in space in their own spaceships and they are their own empire. What gives? That's fairly unnatural and strange, especially since maybe I want to uplift a species, but only partially, and then infiltrate their society with secret angels and clone army, just to have, I don't know, a slave population for my empire once they are actually ready for it. I mean, that would be cool, but it's you cannot do anything of the sort. Unless you find a nation that is already, for example, in industrial era or something. Anything else? Well, another thing about this game you may have noticed is that it actually has little to no personality to it at all. You may think that it does, because when you think about Stellaris you may be thinking, oh, Blorg. Or if you watched my playthrough, oh, the Empire of the Dark Ones, the Sharian, or whatever else, whoever else's playthrough may have watched. It may feel like this game has personality, but it is because it doesn't. It instead lets you, the player, reflect your own personality up onto it. Which is not actually a bad thing. That's actually one of the main reasons I liked Endless Space 1 so much. It's because it also... Endless Space had more of a personality than Stellaris, I'll give it that, and it was nice, it gave you some kind of universe to walk with, but it did let you project your own personality into that game, and it felt pretty nice. Stellaris is even more blank slate than that, it's entirely reliant on what you do with it. If you want to have an interesting game, you have to make it yourself, you have to... It is your job to make it interesting, rather. But again, that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. And the last comment I have about this game, we are nearing the end of this video, is the music, which is... It sounds good, alright? It does sound good, but it is kind of forgettable. I'm sorry, I really hate to say this, because it's well made, but... Will I remember it very well when I finish playing this game? I will not, unfortunately. Will I listen to it on my own, in my free time? I will not. It's okay, it's nothing special. It sounds good, but it's... that's about it. I'm really sorry to say this, because I know somebody worked really hard on this music, but that's my honest opinion. Anyway, overall, despite all the numerous shortcomings this game has, because it does have a lot of them, it's still really enjoyable. I still played it a ton, and I would still wholeheartedly recommend this game to pretty much anyone to get it, unless they are bothered by the lack of map modes, in which case I actually do encourage you to instead not get this game and wait until the map modes are patched in, because that is a problem. However, if you're not bothered by it, then yeah, you should probably get this game. Or maybe the map modes are already implemented by the time you see this video, in which case, again, get it. I think it's a really fun game, and you're gonna get your money's worth probably, and you're gonna have a fun time and a lot of stories to tell once you're done with this game. So there is that. Also, before we finish, I would like to make a short shout out to Paradox itself, because I want to thank them wholeheartedly and sincerely for actually giving me a free copy of this game before it actually was out. That was really a really nice gesture towards me from them, because I'm a really small YouTube channel, I'm extraordinarily niche, and I'm probably not gonna sell a lot of copies for them. Maybe one, maybe two, maybe a few more. I mean, I know I can be a decent guy when it comes to convincing some other people to buy some games, but I'm certainly nowhere near as good at it as some big channels. I'm just, you know, for me, YouTubing is a hobby, and they gave me a shot at this game anyway, and I'm really thankful for giving me the opportunity to play it, to record videos of it, and to record this introducing video of it as well. So kudos to you for that. I'm humbled and grateful. So anyway, that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching this lengthy video. It was PANCZASU, also known as the Mighty Mix Spammer. Please leave your comments down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you online.